It's that time of the week. Matthew Dickerson is here. How are you, Matthew?
Very good, thanks. Great to be chatting to you again. I like that you build it up. It's that time of the week. It's almost as if people have been hanging off for the whole week waiting for this segment.
They've been waiting. Now, what's this I hear about robots might be making security guards redundant, at least at the quarantine hotels in Victoria, because the robots can't be super spreaders of COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the behaviour of some security guards in Victorian hotels has led to this potentially being a solution. Obviously, we don't need to talk about their exact behaviour, but over in America, robots have been used as quarantine security guards. And it's quite an interesting concept. Robots can do kind of most of the things that you need to do. They can check someone's ID. They can make sure that people aren't roaming the halls. They can basically make sure people have kept their doors closed. I don't know what happens if someone comes out and they really want to get out past the robot and the robot's saying no. I don't know how aggressive the robots might get. But of course, the robots are all linked back to a central control so that if someone does need to come out for some emergency situation, for example, they can still get back and talk to a real live human. But probably the biggest trial I saw of the robots over in the US was in the US Open Tennis Championships. Again, it was very difficult for the tennis championships to go ahead with COVID-19. They did go ahead, but part of that was using robots extensively throughout the motels where the players were staying. So the trials have occurred in America. They've been used a lot over there. Whether they'll be used here or not, it's not sure, but the robots are there. They're 158 centimetres tall. They've got 60 different sensors. They've got 360-degree cameras, heat, temperature sensing features. So I think all the things that you need for that initial inspection, then they're all there. And obviously it can save some time and potentially save some money as well, and maybe let humans do some more important things. There is still a cost to them. The estimation from the US, the work that's been done over there, they used the robots over there for about 3.5 million hours, and the cost still was about $50 an hour. So not a lot cheaper than a human might be, but I think a lot safer in terms of spreading COVID-19.
What happens when the robot has to defend itself and hits someone? Will the robot get charged with grievous bodily harm?
It may well do. It's one of those things. I'm not sure how far it goes. I think if someone really wanted to go past it, they would just go past it. They're not like a Terminator. They're not going to sit there and be fully armed to the teeth and ready to take down someone. It's really about that initial inspection. But obviously, once that happened, then one of the humans monitoring the robots would know about it.
Now, what EV should you buy if you want to run your microwave from your car?
It's not something that I've thought about a lot, Chris, that I want to run a microwave from a car, but it kind of makes sense. You've got a big battery on a car. That big battery can drive around a 2-ton vehicle, so it's going to have enough power in it to run your hairdryer or your microwave or your toaster if you happen to have those in the car with you. And Hyundai's new Ioniq 5, there's a couple of Ioniqs out now from Hyundai that are EVs and they're being proven to be quite popular. But their new Ioniq 5 has been announced. It's got a 480 kilometre range, which is something that everyone is concerned about, but it also has got a power point inside and a power point outside. So you can literally plug in devices, plug in your microwave, plug in any of those devices. I think what Hyundai has done with this particular EV is really gone down the gadget heavy path. And I think they've seen that Tesla has been quite successful with their gadgets. So they've really gone overboard on gadgets, thinking that possibly that's a way to get into that market. They've got augmented reality, heads-up display. So not just the speed on your windscreen, it'll show speed, potential hazards around there, maybe a map of where you're going if you've punched into sat-nav. It's got a solar roof, and the solar roof's an interesting one, Chris. I've always been asked about a solar roof. Why don't you have a solar roof on your car? And my short answer is always there's not enough surface area. When you think about solar panels on your roof of your house, for example, I mean, I know I've got a 10 kilowatt system of mine, and that's made up of about 52 panels. So it's a lot of panels that makes up that 10 kilowatts. The little bit of surface area in a car, in my opinion, in the past has not been enough to worry about because it's not going to put much back into it. But on this particular model, they've estimated that if you're out in the sun, you're driving in the sun and you park it out in the sun, you'll add about 1,300 kilometres of range over an entire year. So it doesn't put a lot of range into it. But 1,300 kilometres from the sun on the roof of your car is still 1,300 kilometres you'd have to get from somewhere else. So that's reasonable. So that seems quite sensible. So again, it's talking about all the sort of normal things you'd expect to see with lane assist. Not autonomous driving yet, but one of the other quite nice things it's got, the wing mirrors, the side mirrors have been replaced by camera mirrors. And this is something a few car companies have tried in the past, and I must admit unsuccessfully, but the Hyundai seems to have it about right. So you don't have the big ugly mirrors out the side, better for wind resistance. You're not going to clip them in the garage as you're driving into a tight space, for example. But again, you get a little screen on the inside that you can still see the same thing as a wing mirror would see. So that's quite nice. The last one to mention is the charging system. It's the first car in the world that's had a dual voltage charging system. It can handle 400 volts or 800 volts, which just give you more flexibility in the charges that you might use. And so that will give you some pretty reasonable charging times. If you just want to add an extra 100 kilometres, so you're on a trip, just need an extra 100 kilometres to keep me going, that'll take 5 minutes. If you want to go from basically flat, say 10% up to 80%, you can do that in 18 minutes. So yeah, all over, pretty impressive vehicle. We'll see it on our shores by about the middle of the year. But again, I suppose what we're seeing is lots of competition in this EV space.
Yes, Hyundai seem to really have their act together. Now, this next one is interesting. Would you like to see a photo of your great-great-grandmother come to life?
Yeah, it's another one of these deep fakes or AI-powered deep fakes, and this is called deep nostalgia. And I think the Harry Potter movies really struck on something here. When people saw the photos in Harry Potter movies that used to just move a little bit, people thought, that's pretty cute, and that's what happens in a movie. And then, of course, Apple brought out live photos where you did take a photo and it just captured a couple of seconds around that photo, so you did actually see a little bit of movement around that photo as well. And one particular company now, again called Deep Nostalgia, has got the idea where you can actually take a photo. So you can take a photo of your great-great-grandmother, take a photo of an historical figure, take any old photo, you upload it to the site, and that turns it into that sort of live photo or that Harry Potter photo where you actually get to see that person in that photo just move for a second or two. And it just means that you can kind of bring to life some of those old ones. It won't turn it into a full-blown image of them and they'll start walking around the photo scene that you've got there, but it just gives you a bit of an idea of what someone in the history or your history might have looked like, a little bit of movement there, they might just tilt their head slightly, so it's just quite a nice little feature to add to some of those old photos, and just goes to show the power that we've now got in AI and some of this deep fake information that's coming through.
Interesting. And Polaris and Zero motorcycles are officially in collaboration. What is the first product we will expect to see as a result?
It's a good collaboration, this one, I think. Polaris, very popular, obviously, especially out around our region where lots of people have got the old quad bikes, probably not so much anymore, but the side-by-sides are very popular out around here. And Zero motorcycles, of course, have got EV motorcycles or electric motorcycles, not EV, they're not a vehicle as such, but electric motorcycles. And so they've teamed together now, they've got a 10-year collaboration they've signed, and the first unit they've come out with is a side-by-side because they are incredibly popular. It's a battery-powered Ranger, so some people might be familiar with their Ranger side-by-side. They've turned that into a battery-powered unit. And it makes a lot of sense on a farming environment. You're not jumping on your side-by-side and driving from Bourke to Sydney. You're jumping on your side-by-side and doing some work around the farm or maybe rounding up a few cattle, or you're basically there where you're not that far away from your shed or maybe your house. So if you start to get to the stage where your battery's getting flat, it's pretty easy to get back and charge it up again. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. It'll be a bit safer than the normal Ranger now because the batteries are down low, so the centre of gravity is nice and low, so that's good. I haven't got any specific details on how many kilometres you'll get out of it in one charge as such. So they've basically announced the unit. They're talking about the ability to basically start production at the end of this year. So they've got a few details to come yet. I can't even give you a price at this stage, but I think it'll keep fairly similar to the existing prices. The exciting part, I think, in the Polaris range is the one I'm really waiting to see is their snowmobile. We won't see a lot of those out here, I can imagine, but Polaris make snowmobiles, and they're pretty popular in areas that have got snow, obviously. So I'm really keen to see these electric snowmobiles as part of that collaboration, and that might be the second cab off the rank as such.
That's great, Matthew. We'll leave it there. Now, of course, listeners can go across to YouTube and watch your videos. Just search Matthew Dickerson. Have a good week, mate.
All right, great. Thanks, Chris. See you next week.